With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Buttkicker, are ready to race.
After a firecracker of a race from the home of British motorsports, the Lionheart Racing Series heads to the Lone Star State to do things Texas style. In the duel for victory from Silverstone, there was contact between Adam Blocker and Joshua Chin coming to the checkered flag, but that couldn't stop the Lionheart King from taking a 5th victory on the trot. Can Blocker saddle up and continue this remarkable streak, or will anyone put his lights out? This is Texas. This is a minus 273 Texas 200, presented by SimRace 247. Hello and welcome back to racespottv and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that is LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, alongside in the commentary booth, as always, is Justin Prince, live timing powered by our partners at ATVO. Follow along with your favorite team and drivers by heading to racespot.tv/Indy. Let's dive straight into our Buttkicker pre-race show, and, well, Justin, there were fireworks from Silverstone as Lionheart headed to the home of British motorsports for the very first time. But here today, we do things Texas style. It's going to be hot, it's going to be rowdy, and with setup changes required today because of an iracing build that came in just at the last minute, I think these drivers are on their toes for what we're expecting here.
This could be one of the most challenging races of the campaign, Arjuna, because these competitors have been trying to battle that exit at turn 2 in practices, trying to battle tire wear, trying to battle with their tools to make sure they keep up with this racetrack. It's going to potentially bring plenty of trouble for some of these competitors, because if you didn't get your preparation down, especially for tonight, then you're going to be in trouble, especially since this isn't your old Texas. This is a track that brings plenty of new grooves and the need for a different style of action.
Let's be honest, Justin. I mean, when it comes to the NTT IndyCar Series and their visits to this facility, a little bit scoured in some disappointment due to none other than the PJ1 compound that stains those upper grooves. But I do think here, as we head in towards this back half of the season, things are going to be interesting. Multiple lines will be on offer. There's plenty of downforce in the setup, which does mean you potentially might be able to make some moves further back in the pack. But ultimately, this sets up the back half of the season and really the quest to try and stop Adam Blocker from a 4th title on the trot.
And it's not going to be an easy slate of races, from Texas to Michigan and its Triple Crown race, to action at tracks such as Iowa or Pocono or Chicagoland you can group in on some of those tracks you want to put a star next to. it's going to all start with a strong run here tonight. But the main thing to consider here, Arjuna, is with this being the first time these Lionheart drivers, in many cases, are coming to this reconfigured Texas Motor Speedway in its current configuration, it's going to potentially bring those challenges where if you do not get yourself used to this track early, it can break up your momentum for the rest of the second half of the season if you don't start off the second half of the campaign off with a bang and make sure you're not one of the drivers who ends up finishing the night in fireworks.
And so let's take a look at our driver standings presented by buttkicker. It is a remarkable lead that Adam Blocker has accumulated. Almost 200 points, I should say, clear of Connor Harrington in second. Must be noted, these points do not include the drop weeks that are offered for the drivers throughout the course of this long 2021 season. It does mean you can drop some of your worst points, and of course that's going to be crucial when Adam Blocker really dives into his trackside duties. Of course, the NTT IndyCar Series will go through their West Coast swing, but things are heating up, Justin, after what we saw last time around. Joshua Chin has dropped to 5th. He'll be missing from tonight's action. It allows the likes of Henry Bennett and Ryan Otis to put the pressure on Connor Harrington.
It's going to be very critical for Connor Harrington to have a strong run in this race tonight because he's going to need a little bit of luck. He's going to also need to be able to score some strong points if he wants a true shot at the championship. And for him and his team, that focus has to start now if you want to reel on in the gap. For Henry Bennett, he's been very much improving the past few weeks. Ryan Otis as well has been one of the cleanest drivers of the campaign. Those are going to be some competitors you want to keep an eye on. And don't forget, chances for Andrew Kinsella to move up to the top 5 in points along with Jason Brophy with some strong runs this evening.
And I mentioned the build earlier today. It did mean that Andrew Kinsella, the setup builder for all Lionheart competitions, had his work cut out to try and get things sorted and to get things back up to the sort of racing that we expect here in the Lionheart competitions. Let's talk about the team standings presented by HyperX and talk about what is undoubtedly the main talking point here, Justin. I mentioned Joshua Chin will be missing tonight with a race suspension. He'll have an end-of-line penalty for the next round from Phillip Island. It opens the door for Brian Carey, Henry Bennett, and Andrew Kinsella to have a good run here today and try to close that gap to the private label Team Hype.
I was talking a bit with Jason Brophy about this, and he mentioned that where it adds that extra pressure to do well, because for Harrington and Brophy, they're known for doing well on the ovals. But for Brophy, keep in mind for that race in Phillip Island for next round, it's not his forte. We've seen him on the road courses. So in our words, if you're private label Team Hype, your focus has to be minimizing the damage of having one less driver for this round and having that said driver have to start at the back of the field and be in damage control the next race. In our words, it's going to be pressure filled. And Adrenaline Motorsports Red has a huge opportunity to be able to close that gap up and quick this round.
And I mean, I just want to highlight that in these team standings presented by HyperX, Adrenaline Power Slide, that is Adam Blocker all by his lonesome. He sits there in 7th. Just a testament to the remarkable run he's had. No lower, I should say, than top 5s since September of last year when the Lionheart Racing Series visited Chicagoland. 5 victories on the bounce. He looks to go 6 for 6 here today. Here's a look at your rookie championship presented by buttkicker. It was close over the last couple of rounds, but with the road race last time around, Jason Brophy struggled, and really that opened the door for Henry Bennett to almost build a full 80-point advantage over the private label Team Hype driver. But someone I've been very impressed with, Justin, over not just this IndyCar Series in 2021, but across of the Lionheart sanctioned series is Lionel Calisto and Matt Taylor. 2 very quick drivers, no matter what type of a course we put them on. I think those are 2 drivers to watch here today.
Calisto's had some strong speed and some good calls in recent weeks, absolutely. But Taylor was very impressive during New Hampshire week when it came to Speedway and Retro Series competition, sweeping that week in racing action. He's been also expanding his repertoire to stunt cars in recent weeks as well. So Taylor has someone who has been working really hard to be fast in multiple different types of disciplines and multiple different types of cars. Matt Taylor could be someone, if he does well in these next few weeks, who could be a real threat to try and break through for a Lionheart IndyCar Series victory because he's got the pace. It's just, can he get the track position?
He swept New Hampshire week. I mean, what a performance that was from him when we went short track racing. This, though, is a very different type of a challenge. Before we talk a little bit more about the track, let's get to our series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Everyone is chasing the Lionheart King Adam Blocker, but they all do it with the same fixed setup. Obviously, it's undergone some changes here today. That's going to make things a little bit more interesting, with preparations therefore being stilted. But ultimately, Justin, a track like this, it is all about those in-car tools and staying on top of your Dallara IR18.
And every driver I spoke to stressed the importance of keeping up with those tools, because if you fall behind here at Texas Motor Speedway, it's going to really cost you with the tire wear, but also potentially in your ability to hold on to track position. As well, keep in mind, some drivers were seeing high levels of tire wear in some of their preparation prior to some of those track updates. So for some, there's the preparation that has now been put in throughout the day-to-day with those changes to see how this track now changes and how those grip levels are now affected. It's going to be very critical to know how that setup's going to respond and how things are going to fare out, because it has a stiffer right side springs, a lower rear end to the car, and more front wing as part of some of its adjustments for today here at Texas.
And obviously, I mean, very hard for the team at Lionheart to know what's coming, so props to Andrew Kinsella for getting on top of it. And it does sound like some of the drivers enjoy this setup a little bit more than what they had in the previous warm-up races over the last couple of days. Lionheart, it goes big in the Lone Star State after a one-year absence from this wonderful facility. We make our first trip to the new Texas Motor Speedway. It is our 7th trip to Texas in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition. An interesting stat, Justin, we visited a number of tracks in the last couple of weeks across the Lionheart Series where the pole sitter has never won. Here, though, pole might be crucial. Pole has won from 3 times at the Great American Speedway. If Adam Blocker is on pole, I don't know if anyone can stop him.
It's been talked about by a couple drivers, Arjuna, that track position is king. A little bit more than the older configuration, Texas Motor Speedway. It can be tricky to try and make a move on the leader in the early going. It's to where drivers have weighed out when are they going to pit, and for some, there's the nervousness, especially with the pit road exit of, okay, how do we play out this strategy to make sure we don't go behind the 8 ball or lose that said track position? That's going to be definitely weighed in today, especially if you are that pole sitter to try and hold on to that front point. But the main thing to emphasize here, the difference in the banking in turns 1 and 2 makes this track handle a whole lot more differently compared to before. And for some of these competitors, there's been close finishes within a 10th or 2 here in the past. There's been times where there's been minimal cautions of as low as 2, as many as 10 in some cases. But the lead changes as well could be interesting, especially with some of the strategy. That's one of the main things I'm keeping my eye on, is can the drivers overcome some of the dirty air, and can they strategize their way to the front with some of the tires?
And so let's talk about this facility. Obviously, our first trip to this new configuration, new to the iRacing service, which we should say, Justin. It's a 1.5-mile track. 4 corners, just like all ovals, but each end of the racetrack very, very different. Turns 1 and 2, it's 20 degrees of banking. Turns 3 and 4, 24 degrees of banking. It's going to be an interesting challenge, and like we were saying earlier, staying on top of your tools is going to be important, because at each end of the racetrack, with wind obviously being a factor, you may have a very different car handling beneath you.
And keep things in mind as well, with that different banking in turns 1 and 2, it's a bit more wider of a corner as a result, a bit smaller of an apron with that track reprofile in change. With that, drivers have talked about the importance of going later, arcing their way into the corners to be able to maximize the amount of grip at that end of the speedway. If you don't keep up with your steering in turns 1 and 2, though, you're likely either slipping up into the outside safer barrier off the corner or bobbling your way to the inside wall down the back straightaway. And it's so critical to carry enough momentum in turns 1 and 2 to maintain it for 3 and 4, because the difference in momentum and difference in banking, that makes turns 3 and 4, in some cases, near full out to be able to carry speed.
I'm just taking a look at the qualifying standings. Qualifying is underway. 5 minutes. Drivers have the track to themselves. 2 flying laps. Set your fastest lap time. See where you stack up. And, well, the Lionheart King, he's all the way down in 18th position, Justin. This is going to be a monumental hurdle for him to overcome. Strategy might be the key to cycle your way to the front.
And as talked about, some drivers are weighing out, do they come in after 25 laps? Do they come in about 30 laps in some cases to run? Some drivers were expecting competitors to minimize the amount of pit stops, Arjuna, as well for tonight. In regards to Blocker, it's going to be interesting indeed to see how things fare out, because keep in mind, his real-world commitments have kept him very busy, whether it be at Nashville or whether it be with team tests in various other locations. So it's going to be critical for Blocker to try and minimize the damage if he can't get through the traffic. His goal, he told me, was get to the top 5.
And continue that streak that dates back all the way to September of last year. Blocker was in Nashville this past weekend for the first running in the Music City of the NTT IndyCar Series. He'll be headed to Speedway, Indiana this coming weekend as we go racing around the road course. A triple header of action. He'll be then heading to the Worldwide Technology Raceway the week after that. Plenty of action for the Lionheart King. Qualifying has come to a close. Let's go trackside here in the Lone Star State. Let's take a look at our starting grid here today. And so here is your butt kicker starting grid. The second career appearance for Robert Malechka III in IndyCar competition. He puts it on the pole for Factory Back. Alongside him, another newcomer to the IndyCar Series. It's Michael O'Brien, only 200ths off the pace. Chris Fowler and Ryan Otis, they'll line up on row number 2 with Henry Bennett searching for championship glory inside of his Adrenaline Motorsports teammate Joe Branch in the Coca-Cola machine. 7th position goes to Connor Harrington, second in the championship. He needs a good run here to try and close the gap to Adam Blocker. Jay Brandt rounds out row number 4 with Andrew Kinsella and Brian Beard bringing up the tail end of the top 10. Mike Rasmussen and Chris Lanini 11th and 12th position, with Tyler Graf in the 26th alongside Adam Fraser in the 17. The Muscle Man returns, or I should say makes a debut in IndyCar competition. He'll be making the rounds on the ovals here in 2021 with Chris Stouffer, the Adrenaline Motorsports black driver, on his outside. Matt Taylor and Stefan Larkamp teammates us in all NHR Esports row number 9, with Barrett Rolfe and Paul Jenkins 19th and 20th positions. Jason Galvin, the only previous victor at the Texas Motor Speedway, he starts inside of the Canadian Brian Carey. Adam Blocker, lots of work for the championship leader to do if he wants to carry on this run of victories he's enjoying. Ricky Harding in the number 7 car completes row 12. Jason Brophy, Alexis Newsom, always strong on the ovals. Watch out for row number 13. James Krahula and Lionel Callisto, 27th and 28th. Tony Showen and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, their cars not setting qualifying lap times. Some penalties in the mix here as well. Matt Houston, Scott Holmes, Mike Rigney, and Dustin Wardlow complete our butt kicker starting grid. It is 133 laps of action here today. I cannot wait to see what's happening. And as always, we have onboard looks with every single one of your drivers. Let's start by focusing, though, on our featured onboards. And let's start with Chris Fowler in the number 20. He's got the -273 on board, the premier name in karting gloves. Visit -273.biz.
With the HyperX on board, it's Ryan Otis. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Andrew Kinsella has the butt kicker on board. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com.
Barrett Rolfe has the Carnox onboard camera. Carnox, makers of the finest esports gaming chairs. We've got your back. Visit carnox.com.
Justin, this is going to be an intense race. It is debutants on the front row, the second race for them. What are you expecting here today?
I'm expecting a very intriguing race with the potential for some drivers to feel things out early on, especially with the differences in turns 1 and 2. I'm also expecting, though, a race where we see multiple lanes without the PJ 1 and 3 and 4 starting to form up early on. It's going to be busy, to say the very least, to see how things fare out.
We're in the Lone Star State. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the minus 273 Texas 200 presented by SimRace 247. His first career pole. It's Robert Malechka that gets us underway at the Great American Speedway. It's a clean start out front. Already, though, some swap-arounds. Ryan Otis, Michael O'Brien getting swarmed on the start. Chris Fowler up to second. Henry Bennett searching for a podium position. This, though, is the crucial time, Justin. Tires will be fresh, and we're expecting plenty of moves to be made.
Especially when it comes to the middle of the pack, that's going to be very critical. Look at multiple drivers, though, trying to utilize the upper lanes in turns 1 and 2. A couple of them able to utilize the outside line in the heart of the pack to be able to get some runs.
Single file up front, but it's Barrett Rolfe side by side with Matt Taylor. Can he get the move done as Jason Galvin has a great view of the action coming through turn number 4? And this is a very tricky section of the track. It looks relatively simple, Justin, but with the twitchiness of the car, coming across the start-finish line is always a risky place. They're almost 3 wide for 20th on back.
I think that was almost 4 wide and a bit of contact. We just seen right there a bit of a side pod damage, I believe, for one of those cars involved there. That's going to really hurt them after that contact.
Lap 3 in the books. It is hectic as we expected. Jason Galvin searching for a move on Adam Fraser. The fastest lap is bouncing around, but it's Indiana's own Christopher, a 24.672 that puts in the fastest lap. Look at Adam Blocker, though, almost hitting the rear wing of Jason Galvin. Matt Taylor gets a great run, but momentum checked up. Adam Fraser leaves him nowhere to go.
Yeah, and they're all boxed in right now back here, and you mentioned that difficulty with the front straightaway. It's so easy for drivers, especially when they're side by side, to just push up and hit the safer barrier scene in multiple cases. But there's Blocker utilizing that bottom lane. That's exactly what drivers expected. But the thing is, I've noticed that top line, as long as you're able to box in that driver down low, you're able to utilize it. Several drivers are using that for cleaner air and making it stick.
Here we go. Is it a battle for the race lead as Chris Fowler looks to try and use that upper groove. 20 degrees of banking through turns 1 and 2. I don't know if that's where you're going to get the move done. It might be through this 3 and 4 complex. A side-by-side further back is Jay Brandt now challenging Henry Bennett and gets up into 4th position. That was a very nice run down that back straightaway.
Very well executed. And it was talked about, if you're able to build up enough draft and enough momentum coming off of turn 2, you can easily make the move through turn 3. Or you build up that draft in turns 3 and 4 to be able to make the move down the front straightaway. So that has to be the approach these drivers have to make. Very defensive from Malechka the third right now up towards the front, though.
He's just painting the white line. He, I think, knows that clean air is king. And as we're watching the Lionheart Retro Series, King Ryan Otis, who's made a very impressive transition into the IndyCar in the Dallara IR18. He's trying to challenge the 007 of Henry Bennett. That 3 wide, though, back in the pack. Who's that on the inside? That's Connor Harrington. He's searching for championship glory. He's in to 6th position.
And it's been impressive from Harrington so far, just a +1, but he's been having to defend multiple different drivers at this point, with how busy he's been getting with Otis, with Branch around him, with Michael O'Brien in front as well. You can see just he prefers that bottom line. Well executed, a ton of momentum right against that white line.
It definitely looks as though while the upper groove might be a bit more comfortable, Justin, it's not where you necessarily want to be for speed when you're in the dirty air. Yes, if you're Robert Malechka, it's an easy thing to just stay up high, stay down low, I should say, and take the shortest distance around the track. As now Andrew Kinsella is side by side with his adrenaline teammate, Christopher. But really, if you've got the dirty air in front of you, it seems that enough cars are going up high that if you get down low, you can carry that momentum, you can get the move done.
Yeah, it seems that way so far, where, keep in mind, with that aero wash, you have to lift a little bit, especially in 3 and 4, compared to if you have clean air, it's near full throttle. Here's the thing to think about, Arjuna. You burn more fuel with that clean air, too. It could be up to 5 laps difference for some drivers on the fuel mileage. When it comes to that, 43 laps in clean air or so, up to 48 laps if you're able to save fuel in the draft.
Interesting. It does mean that maybe we'll see a big window for undercuts and overcuts, and in terms of tire drop-off, we're not necessarily seeing too much of that here just yet as the action continues. Let's take a look at your track conditions. It's 26 degrees in the air, 41 down on the track itself. It is mostly cloudy, so we may get those moments, JP, when the sun shines on the track, just heats it up that little bit more. Not much wind to speak of, though. It's not necessarily therefore going to be gusting around and blowing these drivers across the track.
The thing is, though, the in-sim time for these competitors is already past 4 o'clock, almost at 4:30. So it's going to potentially, with the clouds as well, get a bit cooler as this race progresses towards especially the halfway point on forward. So that's something to consider, to be able to adjust to that track, and that's where those tools are definitely going to have to come into play to be able to do that properly. Back with Blocker, meanwhile, he's up 4 positions so far, Arjuna. He's been able to utilize that bottom line really well as well, but the problem has been, of course, finding his way towards the front since he's already 4 seconds back in the leaders.
And you can see just nowhere for him to go. He has to lift off hard coming through the exit of the corner as Barrett Rolfe feeds him a whole heap of dirty air. Rolfe is side by side with Adam Fraser. Puffs of smoke in front of them. Doesn't look like there's anything happening, maybe just some technical issues for one of the drivers, but now the charge continues, and this is where Blocker has to be decisive and incisive at the same time. He's got to make sure he's in the right position at the right time because he needs to get up into the top 10 because we mentioned his real-world commitments, and who's that around? I think that's Jason Galvin. The yellow flag flies for the first time today.
And we were talking about him, his experience at this racetrack and being able to find victory lane, and now this is going to rebunch things up and make things intriguing on who elects to take tires. You can see this is exactly the fear for some of the competitors, Arjuna, was trying to keep the right rear tire underneath them as well as make sure they don't get loose. And for Galvin, it just looked like he got loose right there. He started getting loose in the middle of the corner.
Yeah, there's a bump on the exit of turn number 2, which I've seen a number of cars being spun around by, and Galvin does nose that car into the wall. I want to take a look on board, though, with Brian Carey because he was tucked up right behind the thumbs up, can't sit down car, and a bit of a moment there. Carey doesn't actually lift that much at all, and, well, then it is Galvin that pays the price, and the first caution on the day. Will we see pit stops? It looks as though your race leader is coming down. He is not followed in by the cars behind him.
That's an interesting call, to say the very least, as just about everybody else is coming on down here. This is a massive track position gamble, I think, for some of your front runners as well as some of the drivers for the mid-back pack to get that positioning. This was what we were talking about, Arjuna, where drivers were expected to try and minimize those stops. Massive gamble for some of these drivers right now, I think.
Interesting call, and I love the additions we have here on the iRacing service. Malechka first off of pit road. Henry Bennett side by side with Joe Branch. Ryan Otis has dropped to position there for, that's not Joe Branch, excuse me, that is Michael O'Brien, who is a very generic paint scheme that I hope will get a couple of additions to, and just to make it a little bit more unique. You see at the outside of the tracks, especially across the start-finish line and through that quad-oval, tri-oval, whatever it's called, you have those yellow illuminated poles on the side of the track, Justin. It's really just adding to the immersive experience we have here on the iRacing service.
Yeah, it adds to that realism of what the rear-world facility has here at Texas Motor Speedway. So with some of the facilities in the infield, remember when this track came out, that a lot of that detail came into play with this facility as well as with the various billboards around the racetrack. Now it's the interesting thing, though, of how these competitors will battle on said track. Though, Arjuna, we've seen some great battling, especially with those who have draft off one another and air wash to deal with, especially in the corners. But so far, we've seen clean air has been very vital to be able to battle and defend with.
So 6 cars stayed out. Chris Fowler leads from Jay Brandt and Connor Harrington. Those are all cars who qualified up there in the top 10. Matt Taylor, another car that elected to stay out with his teammate Stefan Larkamp, both 13 positions gained respectively for the 4th and 5th position cars. Tony Schowen, 23 positions gained after an end-of-line penalty being served after the action at Silverstone. So kind of 2 trains of thoughts here. Cars who were already in the top 10 thinking they just needed to stay up front and maybe expect another caution. than the second grouping, where really they were hoping for something like this. And really, the question I have, Justin, is if you're Adam Blocker, which way do you go? Do you stay out? Do you expect more cautions? Or do you make sure you stay safe? And maybe they're thinking about the longer game here and the fuel strategy. You said it was a 43-lap fuel mileage kind of a thing. 133 laps race distance, that works out to about 200 miles. Strategy could be big here.
It's expected to be a 3-stopper overall. And for a lot of the drivers who pit, they essentially have it simple. 2 more pit stops to get towards the end of the race. In our words, if you're one of those drivers who stayed out, I think you absolutely are junior gambling for an air caution about 20 laps. Because if you don't, that puts you in a tight box.
Well, the pace truck is down onto pit road. We are back underway in the minus 273 Texas 200, presented by SimRace 247. It's a single file start, and of course, that might mean that cars further back in the pack just lose touch of the draft of the cars in front. But Malechka, the first car on fresh rubber, what does he do behind Tony Schowen?
I'm curious of that as well right now with some of these competitors, because keep in mind, some of them are on those gambles. Tony Schowen really pushed up the track, I noticed right there, pushing Robert Malechka the third with them with the aero wash. Already that difference, a few car lengths amongst them.
Out front, by the way, it is once more kind of that outside groove being run by the second car in line, just trying to find the pocket of clean air as in towards 3 and 4 they dive. What do you do if you're Connor Harrington? We've talked about Blocker leading this championship, but Harrington knows he needs some good finishes here, but he also can't afford to be mixed up and to let that gap continue to balloon out.
From him, I try and capitalize on the fact that Blocker didn't have the good qualifying run right now, first of all. Get yourself to the front. I think that's part one that we're seeing right here with this gamble to get inside the top 3 for solid positioning for towards the end of the race. Step 2 is execute. He can't afford to make any mistakes, so he has to be careful in that fight. In step 3, you have to be able to also think big picture. So don't put yourself in too risky of situations. As a result, Blocker, keep in mind, he's in that situation where if he wants to minimize the damage, he has to move forward.
He's almost 3 wide for a moment as he gets to the inside of Adam Frazier. They're behind. No, excuse me, that's Tyler Groff, who's got a new paint scheme for today's action. Got me just a little bit confused there, tucked up behind the Ascari Autosport driver, Barrett Rolfe. Love the camera shake, just gives you an indication of the speed that we carry here as Christopher has clearly figured something out on the tools. Blocker almost washes up into the path of Tyler Groff. He's back to 19th for now, but sets his sights on sailing forward and trying to challenge further up the field. It is still, by the way, Justin, the 6 cars that didn't come down onto pit road controlling the action. Is very close between the first 2 cars.
That's what they projected, is clean air would help them with the track position. Now it's the matter of, can they get what they're looking for? Jay Brantho's been really strong on that second line all throughout these corners. Nearly got the job done this time.
Still side by side, but it opens the door potentially for Harrington and Matt Taylor behind, who goes all the way up to the outside wall. Get some dirty air from Brunt in the pink number 15 car. Status quo remains, but here comes the battles. This might open the gaps for cars behind, and Henry Bennett is defending from his teammates as the 7 cars in front of him start to build a buffer. It's almost half a second between Bennett and Malechka in front.
And speaking of that, I believe there was just some near contact just up the road from Arjuna, because Malechka the third was able to take advantage of a checkup from Larkamp.
It's getting empty. This is what we kind of expected. Oh, loving these shots, listening to the engines roar and rumble. Single file at the front of your field, but Malechka has gotten past Larkamp. Now, what does Bennett do as he tries to follow Malechka to the front? Very impressed, Justin, as to what Malechka has done. Only his second start in the IndyCar Series. We've seen him be very, very rapid in the Speedway and the DW12, but this is a totally different ball game. The DW12 has no in-car tools. This one, the IR18, of course, has a lot more flexibility. It also handles very differently as well, so really great to see Malechka really jumping and taking to the challenge that this series offers.
Now, as we continue to see these drivers battle right behind him, I agree with Malechka the third in particular. He told me before he spends a lot of time on qualifying pace, and it definitely shows in both series with what he's been able to do with that raw pace. And when you put yourself in great positions, Arjuna, it's makes it much easier to be able to capitalize. And now those tires, I think, are starting to come into play for him, because that outside line is really starting to help others. They're still having to deal with the boxed-in effect now with some of these other competitors.
But this is the tires that you were just pointing out. Stouffer sails around the outside. Kinsella follows him through. It's Bennett who's now, in fact, being trapped after a very good qualifying performance for the Brit. Very early morning or late night, depending on how you see it. But Bennett, of course, will now have to try and follow his teammates as he's now stuck behind Ryan Otis in front. Malechka is working now on Matt Taylor, but he's stuck down on the bottom. You can see they fan themselves out through turns 1 and 2. 30 laps into this one, Justin. It's going by fast. I'm just hoping, and I say knock on all the wood around me. Did I just put some of the commentators' curse down because there's been an incident? You can see the smoke. Jason Galvin and Paul Jenkins getting together, but we'll stick live because for the race lead, it is oh so close. 3 cars separated by 1/10 of a second.
Unfortunate for Jenkins, who is in a 3-race deal starting today for Lionheart IndyCar Series action, but Fowler is getting very defensive, utilizing that middle of the racetrack to make sure Brandt can't build up any momentum. The thing is, with Malechka the third, he's coming in fast by about 1/10 a lap compared to these race leaders, and he's been able to stick the bottom of the racetrack when he's gotten some cleaner space. Look at that.
We're riding with the -273 onboard. Malechka went to the middle, but now boxed in by Harrington, who's just trying to find the line to feed the dirty air to the car that's going quickest. Almost contact for a moment, I think, between Malechka and Taylor, as Malechka had to lift out of it to avoid running up the truck and making contact. Here, though, is Jay Brandt still searching. 6 positions gained. He's been very quick in the early stages. It wasn't just the call to stay out, Justin, that's put him in this spot. He clearly is in control of his car.
Yeah, he looks very confident when it comes to his positioning. 0.3 of a second of fall compared to the best lap so far, as the clouds above the racetrack are starting to cool it on down. Keep in mind, Arjuna, it's going to be gradual, but these track temperatures may start to dip from this point forward because of this cloud cover, and some drivers may be able to use this to his advantage with the amount of grip that can start picking up.
Let's go take a look at what happened here. And oh, that's Galvin, I believe, in the wall. And oh, you can actually see Jenkins getting mixed up there. We'll have to spool this one back and take one more look. Galvin, of course, might have had some damage. I'm wondering. He sends it deep into the corner, and I don't know if Jenkins is just unaware of Galvin coming down and coming with some speed and some intensity. But there's contact between the two of them. They end up in the wall.
Here's the look from Galvin. He's seen the opportunity at the bottom of the racetrack. Right there, just they come on down and get attached together. There's not much you can do once you get stuck together like that, and it just send both of you straight up into the safer barrier. Again, lucky to stay green. That would have been the caution the drivers who stayed out would have needed.
New damage model, I tell you, it really does look spectacular. And well, unfortunate for Jenkins then, because like Justin mentioned, he's on a 3-race deal, just trying to work his way back to the top step of Lionheart competition. A bit of a breakaway forming now, though, as Henry Bennett just on the edge of the top 10 is almost a full second clear of Barrett Rolfe, but Rolfe is coming hard. Last time around, about 1/10 of a second quicker than Bennett in front, almost 2/10 quicker than your race leader. And there's oh, never mind, sorry, just getting excited there because my timing screen kind of scrolled on me, and I thought for a moment Jay Brandt has gotten through. Who has gotten through, though, and is ominously in the mirrors of the top 2 cars, is your pole sitter. Malechka is coming, and Malechka is coming fast.
He's doing it, utilizing the top. Look at this. Getting the draft from Chris Fowler to utilize the bottom line, though. He is being very smart with his lane selection. I've noticed that time just a half a lane up to get that clean air. Now nice and smooth to be able to get himself up towards the front.
And for those wondering why we stayed green, Justin, under that incident, oh, the caution is out. And what is this about? I think it's James Krahula and maybe Scott Holmes getting mixed up in this one. And, well, I think both Krahula and Holmes straight down onto pit road. So we'll go and take a look at why the caution is out for the second time today. There's the bright yellow number 4 car, and oh, Holmes snaps viciously loose. And who's that third car that gets involved? That's the Candyman, Dustin Wardlow, I believe.
Welcome back to action, Dustin. Not how I think he wanted that race to fare out, as you have to wonder if that's a bit of the bump and a bit of the weight jacker coming into play there on the corner exit, with how high that lane up was there that time for Holmes. Again, no for Wardlow to go because he did a great job dodging at first. The problem is Well, when you're going that quickly, you have to be able to try and turn right in. That's very hard to do.
I mean, he's going 200 miles an hour when that happens, and really when you pivot and transfer the weight on the car like that, really not much you can do. Pit road, just like we expected, a very busy place, and, well, that incident between Galvin and Jenkins might not have given the caution that some of these cars out front would have hoped for, but this is what they would have wanted. Will Milechka win the race off of pit road? It's Matt Houston that's staying out to try and get that lap led as we've seen in the past. It's close between Milechka and Fowler, but it's not close enough. I think Fowler will hold on. Jay Brandt then in third, with Connor Harrington fourth, Matt Taylor fifth, and Tony Schowen in net sixth position. And for those wondering, Justin, we should say that recent update to the iRacing service. I mean, we got an update today like we were mentioning, but I think it was a couple of weeks ago that we got this update where race control was more lenient, I think is the way you describe it, in when they threw out the caution. And really it's meant that you can have incidents like that as long as it doesn't affect the cars behind and they're able to get off track in time. You stay on the green, and like we saw there, Galvin and Jenkins, big incident that I think Jenkins is already going to get penalized for an avoidable contact. It does mean that we stay on the green until, well, we have further carnage and chaos.
Yeah, there was no one else behind them by the time they got all stuck together, and the other drivers had passed on by, so indeed that comes into play. But now, either way, this is going to be a very intriguing race, to say the very least, because they got the caution these drivers wanted, and it looks like at the very least, we'll see if we got the 2 to go or 1 to go this time by. I'm curious how this plays out for the 99, depending on how things go out for Matt Houston when it comes to this call to be able to stay out here. The lights indeed stay out, lighting coming out in this time by. Either way, this is now exactly how those drivers who stayed out wanted this to play out. Now they're all on even footing. Now it's essentially simple. 2 straight up full fuel runs to get up to the end. Now it's the matter of, can you stay up there and be able to fight with Chris Fowler, who's got that clean air once the green flag waves and Houston likely comes down?
Curious how many lead changes we've seen today, Justin, because it's been close, but I don't think we've actually seen an on-track switch other than the one that happened under the caution during the pit stop cycle. It's a race that had seen a lot of side-by-side action on that old configuration, but this new configuration clearly tough to pass out front, but lots of cars further back making the moves happen.
Now keep in mind, we talked about a bit about this with the weather too for this race today. And with this race, as you can tell, it's already dropped 3 degrees Celsius, the track temperature. And as this day gets further and further along in sim, that's going to open up the lines, I think, Arjuna, for drivers to try and get better runs side by side for the race lead possibly. Because that allows more grip on the higher lines. That opens up those opportunities. So it's the matter of who's going to be able to take advantage of them. As expected, the 99 comes in.
We've seen this before, just getting those bonus points for leading laps. Cycles to the back and maybe actually works in his favor in terms of getting him some nice numbers for those final pit stop that all these drivers will have to make. Another car making its way down. It's the Muscle Man Series debut in the Indy cars. Let's see what he can do on the ovals over the rest of 2021. Excited about our next race, Justin. We're heading to Phillip Island, the land down under for, as I like to deem it, the Thunder down under. It's a very difficult racetrack at times. I mean, you've got some flat corners in terms of braking, lots of elevation change, but also some corners that really challenge you. Cambered in, off camber on exit of the southern loop, that's turn 2, the long sweeping left-hander. It's one that I think a lot of these drivers will already have in the back of their minds. As soon as we leave Texas, they'll be thinking about that trip.
It's not going to be an easy track, to say the very least, because for those who watch the Lionheart Retro Series action, that really challenged even the best of the best drivers, Arjuna, because, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the race where Sage Karam had to charge from essentially the back of the pack to the front, and that was spectacular.
If I'm remembering correctly, it also had a Richie Hearn pole position, which was great to see.
Yes.
It was such a wild race. I loved that track, and Speaking of wild, the Dallara IR18s did roll out to Phillip Island in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championships, which we cover on a Monday here in RaceSpot.tv. That was chaotic. I think every car was involved in an incident. Second caution comes to a close. We are back racing in the minus 273 Texas 200, presented by SimRace 247. All eyes focus on Adam Blocker. Already 10 positions gained on the day so far. He's searching to get to a top 10 here, Justin. It's going to be tough, but he knows he needs these points right now.
It's going to be very critical to close up that gap right now. I think for some of these drivers, the top four got a picturesque start. Now it's the matter of, can they keep the buffer to the rest of the pack? Already 3 different lines coming into play for the top 3.
It's almost like what we see at Indy sometimes here on the iRacing service. That gap is humongous. I think that's the only way I can describe it. Tony Schauer now a full second adrift from Connor Harrington in the 4th position. Now, left-hand side of your screen, talking of Tony Schauer, one of the biggest mover on the day without question. 24 positions gained as we've got a battle for the race lead side by side. Malechka the third trying to use that outside lamp as a ramp. Not able to get the move done, but here down the back straightaway, can he get it done through 3 and 4?
That's been one of the best turns 1 and 2 we've seen. As we've seen, though, the preferred line is the bottom line in 3 and 4, and that hurts a bit of that momentum. Jay Brandt is just waiting here, trying to find out, okay, how do we play this out? They're 2 by 2 now for the front, in fact.
Incredible start from these guys, but all this hard racing might just open the door for Tony Schauer to close on up. Harrington slung it, down to the inside, trying to make that move happen. Didn't happen through 1 and 2, but through 3 and 4, Harrington gets that podium position. Where's the run going to take him, though? He has to check up all of his momentum. He's into 3rd spot.
Just nowhere to go that time. I think he backed off towards the start and finish line to be able to try and wind things back up, get himself a better run. Now it's the matter of regrouping. Keep in mind, some of those drivers are gaining that time back, trying to run to that treadmill and shorten that distance for the rest of the competitors as they all fight in the Hornet's Nest.
We're looking rearwards from Andrew Kinsella in 6th spot. His Adrenaline Motorsports teammate Chris Stouffer is right behind him, and you can see it's Henry Bennett to the inside of Matt Taylor, really slinging it deep. This track is so wide, but it funnels down this back straightaway and in towards 3 and 4. Where does Malechka the third want to go? This is so tough for him to try and get the move done, but he's looking, he is searching, and he is digging deep. 48 laps in the books, still plenty of time for things to happen.
He definitely wants his lead back. The problem has been just getting the momentum and forcing Fowler into a mistake, and Fowler's been playing this smart, not allowing anybody to even take a thought to get towards the middle line. And Harrington looks like he's trying to take advantage of this a little bit to try and get that bottom line to work as well.
Don't think it's going to happen, though, because really Malechka can just ride around where he is, and that dirty air that Harrington is having to eat in effect from the car in front doesn't let him have anywhere to go. He's more concerned in his rearview mirrors. It's 3 wide. Barrett Rolfe, I think, mixed up with Adam Blocker. Some incredible action here as we work our way through lap number 50. It's Rolfe who's up into 11th spot. Blocker around the outside of his Adrenaline teammate Joe Branch in the Coca-Cola machine, who is sliding down the field, now -7 on the day. Been some big movers. Let's go talk about a couple of them. Jason Brophy sees Tyler Groff and Alexis Newsom side by side. Brophy's up 10 positions, Justin. I know you talked to him slightly earlier. He'll be pretty happy. Alexis Newsom is up 9.
Now, what a good job by Alexis Newsom in particular, after not having the best of qualifying performances, being able to execute well, even with the traffic. That, remember, was a bit of a struggle for Newsom, was short run pace in the early going in Speedway Series competition at the start of the campaign, but Newsom's gotten better and better at finding those lines and being able to find that track position. It's just a matter of how the rhythm plays out. When it goes back to Brophy, though, I think he was expecting a bit better of a qualifying performance, but he's absolutely done a phenomenal job to get himself back up to the lead of his particular train right now. He needs to figure out a way to close up the 14th, though, nearly a full second up.
They could be fighting in front. That brings him forward as we're looking rearwards from the private label Team Hype car. Just an incredible sound that these cars make as they thunder around. You can see Rolfe is now already past Matt Taylor and working to try and close the second gap in front. There's been some rather big gaps that have formed here, Justin. I think just an indication of how these cars are really fighting neck and neck, as it's now Adam Blocker trying to get on past Matt Taylor.
Part of this is from the start, I think. Part of this is how things have played out for drivers dealing with the changing conditions and trying to keep up with those in-car tools. That's exactly what we referred to with the importance of the weight jacker.
Whoa! Sorry, Justin, did you see that formation? This is incredible. It's Kinsella around the outside of Tony Shaw, and he's into the top 5. I'd be worried if I saw the Canadian coming in my rear view mirrors. He made those setup changes we were talking about earlier. He clearly thinks he's got the car to fight for the lead.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, when it comes to all this, but you're right with that formation. It has been intriguing to keep that up towards the front of the field, near 3 wide, couple rows deep in some cases here. The intriguing thing's going to be, can they keep it up with this Hornet's Nest going from what was 4 cars to how about 9 within 1.1 seconds?
And the door is open for the likes of Rolf and Blocker to join the party as Harrington to the inside of the pink car of Jay Brunt. Kinsella's almost up on the 5th groove, up there on the upper line. Incredible. Incredible. I mean, 2 cautions on the day, Justin. Yes, it was 2 more than I think we were hoping for, but these guys are putting on a show. They were a bit concerned about this race. Not just the drivers, but even the series organizer, George Anzaldo, was reminding drivers, get your practice laps in, make sure you know what the car is going to do. Shouldn't have worried too much, I think. These guys up front are really delivering for those watching on RaceSpot and ESTV.
And to emphasize the importance of practice to Arjuna, keep this in mind. And this is one of the highest totals I've seen on the day of for a race. 23 competitors plus took part in the final open practice session before tonight's race. So a lot of these drivers took that time and effort to make sure they knew exactly what they were doing for this race, and it's shown to be able to learn that and make sure they knew what this car was going to drive like. It's been incredible, to say the very least, how some of these drivers have taken advantage. It's been also incredible how Blocker is now getting himself to the top 10.
Did you see that, Justin? Or was I just hallucinating there? The left rear of Ryan Otis kind of went dangling, and that's just sometimes the wonder and the magic of online internet racing, is now opens the door for Barrett Rolfe to go on through. The charge from Adam Blocker has been something to behold, but I'm sure he was a little bit concerned about what was happening. You said that you talked to him and he just wanted a top 5 finish. I can understand why. Watching this action, watching this chaos, 60 laps in the books, still more than half the race to go.
And still, multiple pit stops to think about for these competitors as well, which are going to be also very vital. And that's going to really shake things up, you have to think, with some of these competitors towards the front. That has to be thought about with this fall-off total. It's gone into where some drivers are up to half a second in fall-off in this race already throughout the span of this run.
Left side of your screen, you can see it's basically 22 laps across the board in terms of stint lengths. Of course, the likes of AJ Musselman and Matt Houston did come down a couple more times on that last caution period, so they may get a couple more laps from their fuel tanks here, but really, we're expecting about pit stops in the next 20 laps or so, so that would mean lap number 83. And I'm just thinking, Justin, that's not going to be enough to get them to the end if we don't get another caution intervention.
Yeah, when you mention that up, that actually is a really good point, because
that would be 50
going to make
laps.
Things very tight. Yes, you're right. You're right. So that's going to make things very tricky. In other words, I think absolutely if you're in this draft, you're thinking, okay, can I stretch it as far as I can? So the overcut may come into play as a result to make sure they can get to that mark if it stays green.
Andrew Kinsella challenges Connor Harrington the long way around, but now gets that draft from the car in front of him. It can be treacherous to run side by side across the start-finish line, but Kinsella is feeling the action right now, and all the way once more up to the wall. I don't think he's going to get the move done. He'll have to wait for that move to potentially come further in this race, but just got my mind ticking, Justin, when you had mentioned it would be potentially a two-stopper, I should say. That second stop is going to be very short. And it really does open the door for either fuel saving or something else to happen. So it's going to be interesting if someone like Adam Blocker, who we've seen do a lot of fuel saving in the past, can make something happen. Also think about someone like Alexis Newsom. We've seen her be strong on the fuel saving in the Lionheart Speedway Series.
You know who I'm thinking about the most here? Remember when Houston came down coming to the 1-to-go signal? He had someone with him, AJ Musselman. He's 9 seconds back. He's been a bit slower on the mark with a few different drivers. I have to think that maybe there's a plan from 24th on back for some of those drivers to say, why not back off a little bit? A bit of a scrape to the wall, though, for Kinsella down the straight.
The question now is, does Kinsella have any right side pod damage? It can be a bit hard to pick up from these camera angles, especially given the speeds that we're seeing. I mean, entry in towards turn 1 is almost 350 kilometers an hour. About minimum apex speed, 310 if you're in the traffic, but we're seeing a bit higher from your race leader. And let's talk a little bit about your race leader as we take a look at our Sim Experience driver profile. 18 stars for Chris Fowler, only one top 10, and that came last year. It's been a wretched 2021 here in the IndyCar Series. He's been having a much better run in some of the other Lionheart competitions, but here, Justin, he took the gamble to stay out there, and it's clearly working well. He started in third. He's leading today's race.
He's been getting better and better, I've noticed, too, when it comes to his speed. The luck just hasn't been there this season for Chris Fowler. Today, it's been near perfect, from the qualifying to being able to position himself well. It's been phenomenal, to say the very least, to see how Chris Fowler has played things out. He's been also very smart with his defense. It's the matter of, can he keep it up for another 63 laps?
His only top 10 came at Phillip Island. We're heading there in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm seeing some chat in YouTube here, Justin. We don't want the big one. These guys are clearly feeling comfortable. The only issues we've seen are further back in the pack, so I'm not expecting too much chaos and carnage at the front. If anything, I might expect it in the last 5 or 10 laps when we're fighting for the race lead, but really, these guys know what's on the line, and they know just how disappointed the guys watching on in the YouTube chat would be, especially the likes of Mark Cohn, George Anzaldo, also up there in race control. They want to continue this wonderful run because everyone loves green flag pit stops and the risk that it brings.
And you mentioned the risk that it brings. How about that apron we've been discussing a little bit with that smaller sized one in turns 1 and 2? It's treacherous. It's slippery. It's so easy to spin the tires and light them up. Some drivers were practicing that in particular in final practices for tonight. In our words, there's a chance some of the biggest trouble comes on that pit exit if drivers are not too careful.
One thing that always astounds me, Justin, when I think about the Great American Speedway is the fact that, yes, IndyCar comes and races here. Last couple of years, it hasn't necessarily been the most exciting of races. You would never see a car running up where Kinsella is because of the PJ1 that's been put down by the NASCAR sanctioning body. But I always think about CART, and when they came here, or tried, I should say, to come here in 2001, I mean, we're talking about G-forces in excess of 5 Gs. I mean, and that's not just a one-off thing with a little bit of a break. That is constant a G being placed on your body. Speeds in excess of 230 miles an hour. I mean, just incredible things. And drivers, this is where the reality of the situation becomes that humans become the limiting factor. Drivers weren't able to keep up with that force. The race got cancelled 2 hours before the start. The lap times, a 22.542. That was in practice. We are like 3 seconds off that pace.
A lot has changed since then, of course. And of course, Texas Motor Speedway seen a majority of the oval races outside of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Real World TT IndyCar Series action has shown how things have developed with this racetrack. Meanwhile, keep in mind, Barrett Rolfe has really shown that he is someone that learns quickly with these cars. We talked about how his timeline was be able to make it by 2022 to here, to this series. With how he did in the Speedway series, though, he was able to justify that with the earlier timeline, and he's really justified today. He's got the pace on the ovals. The road courses, he definitely needs to work on a little bit, seen with Silverstone. It was a rough race for him there. But today, he's shown his race pace is on there.
Well, and I was a bit surprised by the pace or the lack of pace that we saw from him in the Silverstone race, Justin, because of course Barrett Rolfe competed in the GT Academy, where yes, they went to Silverstone, so a track that he should know pretty well, to compete in the real world on that quest that's brought up the likes of Jan Mardenborough, who now of course competes in Japan across the Super GT and Super Formula Series. So really, I do think that might have been a one-off performance, and as we ride on board with Rolfe and the Carnox on board, would not be surprised if Phillip Island is a much better performance for the 33. He won his first Lionheart Series race at none other than Speedway, Indiana, taking the big one, the Indianapolis 500, the SimRacing Studio Indianapolis 500. He drunk the milk, and I think he is full of confidence, and now past Christopher.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the race that he needed to be able to bounce back and be able to showcase what he can do and be able to show that he can compete at this level. I'm curious indeed on Phillip Island, but it's been impressive, that plus 11 from Barrett.
80 laps in the books here from the Texas Motor Speedway. You are watching RaceSpot TV and coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the minus 273 Texas 200 presented by SimRace 247. Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, the minus 273 Texas 200. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Along in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth is Justin Prince. You can follow along with live timing and scoring through our partners at ATVO. Head to racespot.tv/Indy to find your favorite team and drivers. JP, pit stops are underway. It was the race leader Chris Fowler that was the first to blink, and as the yellow flag comes out, this is crucial. Cars are trapped multiple laps down, and ultimately it's Jay Braunt's such an impressive run that brings out the caution.
Unbelievable, and this is exactly the fear that drivers had when it came to green flag pit stops. Will somebody have a problem coming in, especially with how difficult this entry as well can be, with the difference in banking through 3 and 4 to the apron, and now the whole field has been shuffled upside down. I was about to actually say Jay Brandt looked to be in a great spot because he had saved a decent amount of fuel. And then the yellow flag waved, and guess what? This race just took an interesting turn.
It has been turned on its head. Now, the question I have is, since the cars aren't really stacked up behind the pace car, yeah, indeed, the pit lane is open, and really, it's not going to be much of a fight down on pit road. It's going to be Tony Schowen, Connor Harrington, and Barrett Rolfe, your front three running cars. Let's go ahead and take a very quick look at our RaceSpot TV replay machine, because it has been waiting to see what happened here for Jay Brunt. Oh, he gets a little bit loose before he even touches that apron. That spins him around. He'll be lucky, JP. No damage on the car, but he might have an unsafe pit entry penalty, as it were. Not 100% sure, but as we take a look at the onboard, you mentioned it. This was the worry from drivers. As you can see, down a couple of gears, car snaps around on him.
Yeah, and that spin coming right down underneath that initial commitment cone that you have to take to avoid an unsafe pit entry penalty. I think he might be okay in that regards, but he will lose the track position. Lucky to not spin it up the racetrack, but you know who this hurts? Chris Fowler, Matt Taylor, Adam Frazier, Lionel Callisto among the drivers who had pit already under green. That's exactly what we were just talking about, Arjuna, with the luck with Chris Fowler. The luck just disappeared, unfortunately, for him just now.
And you know who's also had some terrible luck with that? Your pole sitter, Robert Malechka III. He was looking very possibly at his first Lionheart IndyCar Series victory. And well, now he's in 22nd position, and with not much time, Justin, to turn things around.
And even then, it might be a touch bit tight on the fuel. He's among one of the first drivers with the wave rounds. I don't know if he's going to be able to cut his way past 21 cars. It's a whole race process we've seen throughout this event so far. Adam Blocker's the perfect example. That caution flag just netted him an extra few positions to get himself to the edge of the top 5, for example.
Crazy. Crazy. I mean, we couldn't have timed that little break that we had there, Justin, any more perfectly. We thought we would come back to pit stops. We came back to the race-defining caution. Third on the day, still relatively low in terms of numbers from the Lone Star State in terms of, the past 7 years of Lionheart history, but ultimately, that is the one that makes the difference. It is still potentially a fuel mileage race to the end. We may now see what we saw on that first caution. If we get another one, who decides to come down? Are tires really going to be worth it?
We've seen for drivers who are battling with the aero washer, I think during that first caution flag in the split strategy, they help to a point. It takes 20 laps for it to really showcase that difference based on what we've seen, 15, 20 laps or so. But once you get to that mark, it does play that difference. But here's the thing. That clean air has been so beneficial where even with the fresher tires, we've seen how difficult it was to try and pass the race leader. So in our words, it's a mixed bag. If you're one of the drivers, say, in the heart of the pack, or even, say, 7th or 8th, I think you think about it and potentially take the gamble if you get enough cars, Arjuna. If you're up towards the front, you take the risk and stay out.
So you know who's in the dominant position now, Justin? A man who has had 3 top 10 finishes this season. It is Tony Schowen. End-of-line penalty started all the way down at the tail end of the field. 28 positions gained, but he's got Connor Harrington behind him. Who can forget? These two cars came together when we went road course racing earlier this season. Schowen was a lapped car. It wasn't for position. I wonder if Harrington still has that in the back of his mind.
I think a little bit, but at this point, the smart thing, Arjuna, is you don't want to let that weigh down your decision-making here on how you attack this. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit harder racing from Harrington to try and get along side by side. But really, smart thing is you can't let that get to you, even with how things have been. The main thing is Tony Schowen has been good on the ovals, Arjuna, we've seen all year. The road courses, they've been a different story.
Definitely not his forte. The road course is very much an oval specialist, but he leads the field. It will be 42 laps to go. It is just within that fuel window. actually, Shawan might not be in control because he might have to save fuel. We are racing once more at the Great American Speedway, and this is the sprint to HyperX victory lane. Once more, it's a monster jump from the top 3 cars, already separated by Henry Bennett by almost a full second.
Well executed, but that trap's going to come into play. Keep in mind that the driver's third on back have some lap cars they have to drive around, so that's going to be massive. That buffer point. Look at this run over Harrington down towards the front.
Outside line, and can he make it work? This is when I think he needs to do it. Tires are fresh, and at the same time, lots of confidence. Harrington sends it deep, but side by side, it's still a battle for your race win. Harrington, is he clear? Just about, but still Shawan fights this one back.
Just a touch bit too tight to clear himself. I thought that was the perfect run. He got there, especially down the front straightaway to get side by side. Now, if he can replicate that and be able to get a quarter of a car length further down the straight, he can get that job done. It's not going to be easy now that Tony Shawan knows what to expect here. Look at that!
The over-under, the dummy Harrington to the pointy end of things. Second in the championship. He knows he needs to start winning races. 39 laps to go. It's Harrington at the front.
And that's exactly what he needed to do to get that bottom pried off. Tony Shawan was not as defensive as Chris Fowler had been for that same spot. And Harrington said, you know what, if you're not going to do that, then I'm going to just take it away. Perfect to pick that up. And in turn, gave the space. Barrett Rolfe is now stuck side by side just about for second.
Don't think you'll get the move done for now, and I think Shawan might have learned his lesson, but it might be a bit late. He might also have just been thinking, Justin, I mentioned the fuel numbers. Is maybe Shawan playing the long game here, because we saw Fowler having to blink first and come down onto pit lane. It is going to be very close, as here comes Rolfe to the inside as well.
I still think as long as you're in the draft, you are in a decent spot. With the caution flag total from previous drivers, were able to, if there were a couple cars behind Arjuna, make it a 45. In fact, some more looking like they could make it 46, 47. But remember, as you mentioned, Fowler burned around 43, 44 in clean air. So that's going to definitely weigh in a little bit for some of these drivers and how this fares out. If it goes green, that's the critical part. If it goes green.
No guarantee here in the Lone Star State that we will get that run to the end. Left side of the screen, Justin. I mean, let's just touch on this. 17 positions for Rolfe, 26 for Tony Shawan, 19 for your Lionheart King, Adam Blocker. Jason Brophy up 17, Brian Carey up 10, Newsom's 13 positions gained, and Nunez is plus 16. This has really been a race where, yes, strategy has mixed things around, but in the case of Adam Blocker, Barrett Rolfe, and even Jason Brophy, that's not positions on strategy, that's positions on track.
They're all really good at ovals. That's the one major thing that's in common with a lot of those drivers you just mentioned who have been able to pick up those positions. In some cases with the strategy, but in a lot of cases with the raw pace of knowing what line to run and where to find the clean air. Kinsella's been someone who's also been that way as well, I've noticed. He's been able to dice his way around, play things out fairly well. Now it's the matter, though, of the true test. Now that you're towards the front, can you capitalize on it with how critical this could be? And a bit of a clip of the grass there for Harrington.
Doesn't open the door, at least for the time being. Shawan slides up the track in front of Adam Blocker, who did try a rather opportunistic send on his teammate, but nothing doing, at least for now. They're getting racy back in the pack. I think it's Christopher in his chrome car that I saw just trying to block off the run of Brian Carey as across the line, 32 laps to go. Here comes Blocker to the outside, but once more defended by his teammate. Blocker won to the top 5. I would not be surprised here if he decides to be a little bit conservative, Justin. 6 for 6 sounds nice, but he's already in the Lionheart history books. He knows his championship standings is much more important.
You obviously want to win if you see the opportunity. But sometimes, indeed, you have to think that big picture for points. Just as you say that, though, look at Blocker with a massive send. At the very least, he wants to take the chances. He's trying to get the spots. He's one of the drivers I noticed who's been the most aggressive out of anyone inside this top 5.
We're on board with the 07 of Henry Bennett. Hopefully no license to kill here tonight. As we ride on board, it is... Ooh, Rolf tries to send it deep, but I don't think he's going to get the move done. And still, I know you never want to trust the commentator's math, especially when that commentator in question is myself, Justin. But I'm still not sure. I'm still not convinced that Harrington or Rolf are in the prime positions. I really think that Schauen, Blocker, and Bennett are the cars you want to be right now.
I mean, that's obviously justified too with Jay Brandt making it to a spot where he could have, as long as he saves the touch bit before his spin, of course, that brought up the caution flag, been able to make it if he was able to make it through smoothly. So it indeed is in a spot where you can think, okay, this is the chance that we're going to have to take to try and save. But now it gets intriguing again, near 2x2 for the race lead.
I think Harrington sees Blocker coming and knows that he needs to defend for all he is worth. Harrington is searching for his 6th IndyCar Series victory. Meanwhile, Barrett Rolf, second appearance in this series, Justin, already scrapping it out at the front. What a rise it's been in 2021. You mentioned he was only focusing on this for 2022, but the series admins have done a great job to promote him to the elite level of Lionheart competition.
We talked about his pedigree.
Sorry, I thought I saw a bobble for a moment there, and don't think it was too bad. Jason Brophy is around the outside of Henry Bennett. This is, of course, for the Rookie Championship. Can Brophy go the long way around? Yes, he can. Looks like we're all in order, at least for the time being.
Those private label team hype cards are looking very sporty today, as we'll say Rolf has been trying to utilize as high of a line as he can to try and get things to work and build up the run down the straightaway. He just can't get close enough to be able to make the dive towards the inside. Look at this, though. One of the better runs to the outside.
Look at how close he got there. Almost contact between the two leaders. Here we go in towards turn number 1. They are swapping around on the timing screen. It is still Harrington painting that white line. Don't think anything's doing just yet. And what's Blocker going to do? He is looking feisty, going back and forth with Barrett Rolf. Ultimately, though, just trying to find, I think, a pocket of clean air as Rolf tucks back into line, builds up his momentum. Here he comes once more.
And Rolf's got to be careful here, because if he opens up that bottom too much in turn 3, Blocker has shown he will take it away from you and fast. He's been close a couple times. A bit of a check of a Blocker this time.
Sorry, I'm just enjoying the rumble of these engines right now. I mean, I know these drivers were a bit concerned about what would happen, but really, it has been so much fun watching them rock and roll here in the Lone Star State, kicking off the back half of the season. Round 12, it has been 11 electric rounds, to say the very least, Justin. This back half of the season, the run to Auto Club in December, it's going to be fascinating, and with the second of our Triple Crown races coming up very, very quickly, I'm really looking at Barrett Rolf as someone who's going to take the fight to the established contenders in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Well, there's a saying, everything's bigger in Texas, and we've seen some big runs and some big swings from some of the newcomers, from some of the rookies, from some of the strategy calls, and it's worked out in a lot of the cases very strongly for those who have been able to stretch the runs as long as they can. And Rolf's been among those who have played things out perfectly. Brophy and Bennett are right there too, keep in mind with all this. 7-car scrap separated by 1.4 seconds has everyone, I think, having the popcorn seats being developed here with the fuel strategy, but also waiting for a chance to pop on forward in case things boil over with the tires.
So there's the Katzberg seat, and now there's the popcorn seat. I do like that one, JP. 20 laps to go. It means 30 miles left in our race. And really, Justin, the time has flown on past. One of the quickest Lionheart IndyCar Series races we've had here in 2021. And really, just a testament to these drivers and the racing we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Yes, Silverstone was a little bit messy at the very end, but, I mean, leading into that final corner, I would genuinely think, Justin, that might be one of the best fights we've seen in Lionheart competition history.
Yeah, I will give that credit for that fight. Blocker and Chin put on a stellar fight for that race lead, going back and forth in that race. We're seeing one of those come into play here, Arjuna, right now, too. That could be up there between Harrington and Rolf, because they keep on getting strong runs. Rolf has been willing to get as close as he could and needs to that right rear tire. It's just been the matter of trying to get himself fully along side by side. That's been the tough part for him throughout this entire run. Blocker, too, is trying to just follow this snake around.
6 previous trips to the Texas Motor Speedway. 4 of them ended in green flag runnings. 3 of them less than a second. 2 of them less than 2/10 separating our victories. Of course, yes, there were 2 finishes under caution. I'm really hoping we go green to the end here, Justin, because it's going to be another one of those photo finishes. And really, I would not be surprised if Barrett Rolf finds that purchase, because look at him. He is searching. He is experimenting. He is downloading the data, knowing that the final 1.5 miles are the only laps he needs to lead.
And some drivers talk about this time of the race, this experimentation of seeing, okay, will this place work? Will this place work? Will that work? I expect, though, that intensity level to pick up in about 5 laps or so, Arjuna, with how this has been faring out as the caution gets out.
This changes everything, and it's Jay Braun who I think is involved for the second time today. Oh, and big damage. The pink car straight onto pit road. Let's go take a look at the racespottv replay. Coming out of turn 2, this was known as the trouble point, and well, noses that car into the wall. Very reminiscent of what Jason Galvin had in our first caution on the day. Let's take one more look and ride around with Matt Houston, who had a bit of a shock when things happened, but unlike what we saw with the Candyman, he was able to duck and dive his way past the spinning and stricken car of Jay Braun. Now the question is, who comes down onto pit lane, Justin? Would not be surprised if none of the cars out front decide to do so.
It's been about 30 laps, and look out! Almost a couple cars hitting the cone!
Oh, so there is some split strategies. It was close for Barrett Rolf, but Jason Brophy leads a train of cars down. Mike Rasmussen, Andrew Kinsella, Christopher, and a couple more, but really, I don't think too many cars have decided to do this.
Those are around the positions 6th, 7th, 8th on back. Remember, I talked about who I seen might roll the dice and try the tires. The problem is, I don't know if it's going to be enough for them to be able to claw their way up towards the race lead, because 12 stayed out this time. It's not going to be easy for them, let's just say that, to be able to get themselves around all those cars in the span of what would be about 12, 11 laps or so. I think this plays out for the drivers who stayed out here, possibly, with how many laps there are.
But you know what is interesting here, Justin? That first caution came around lap 20 or so. This has come 30 laps into the run. It took 20 laps for the fresh tires to become worth something in that first portion of the race, 15 to 20 if we're being a bit more accurate. Would not be surprised if Jason Brophy, maybe not challenging for the lead at the conclusion of this race, but a top 5 finish, it's where he was anyway. So, yeah, I'm a bit shrugging my shoulders and a bit perplexed here, but we'll have to wait and see. I believe it might be 12 to go when we get back to the action.
Again, I mean, why not? Is the main thought process of, if you feel like you weren't going to be able to have the shot for the win on the previous strategy, try something different, right? And for Brophy, he's trying that something different. Now it's going to be, where does he all line up and play things out here, as Blue have one less lap than that projected about 11 ago, with the light still on top of the iRacing pace truck either way. This is going to be a busy battle for the race lead, and that fight into turn 3 is going to be heavily contested with how these drivers need to get to the inside and protect that line.
You can hear the engines revving as the cars up front just burn off some fuel, because of course now there is no question about cars being good to the end, Justin. Everyone will be good. If you're Harrington, I think you feel pretty confident now. You've been able to fend off the advances of Rolf. if you're blocker, you know you might still have a podium here to settle things in Texas.
Yeah, this is right in Harrington's hands to be able to play this out. With how the importance of clean airs has been, for him to try and get his second victory of the season is huge, to say the very least, to try and chip away that gap to blocker. Now here's the main question. How does Barrett Rolfe play this? Does he try and fight aggressively to get to the inside of him for turn 3, I think? Or do you try and get it to the outside, make that work because it worked once before? It could work again. You have to weigh out those options, and the testing that Rolfe had there with the different lines and seeing what worked to get side by side is going to be paramount to say, okay, did that work out? Can I make it work with us getting the one to go here?
Data is downloaded, being analyzed by Rolfe, and I'm sure his entire team. I'm pretty sure he's got a human spotter, as some of these teams and drivers do indeed have. The question is, can Harrington hold on for his second victory on the season? Or will it be Rolfe, his second race in the IndyCar Series, taking the victory? Justin, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who do you think's gonna win here?
Well, Harrington's in the best position. I'm tempted to say Harrington. So I think he's in the best position to defend. I would go with him, honestly. I know that's a boring pick, but he's got himself in the best place to defend, up at the front.
So here we go. It will be 11 laps at the Great American Speedway. 16.5 miles to decide the minus 273 Texas 200 presented by SimRace 247. The pace truck is down, and Harrington goes. We are racing, and no gaps between the top 10 cars. This is not going to be just a 2-horse race. This might be 10 cars in with a chance of victory. Get out the popcorn. All of these drivers know that one incident could change the complexion of this race.
That top 4, though, got the better launch compared to the rest of the pack yet again. As you can see down that back straight with the fresh tires are starting to try and sneak around. What stays calm towards the front of it in trouble?
That was one of the NHR esports cars. That's Stefan Larkamp, and immediately the caution is back out again. Cautions breed cautions, and I think it was the fresh tires that really set things on edge. Here we go. Let's take a look. It's 3 wide. I believe that's Mike Razmash trying to make things happen, and well, that is the cardinal sin in racing. Sim racing or real full metal motorsports. Never hit your teammate, and I believe it's a driver whose praises we've been singing, Justin. That is Matt Taylor coming up the track and making contact with the 62 car.
Not been the prettiest of races for Matt Taylor, to say the very least. He was one of those drivers taking 3 wide. You see with the slow motion. See, just trying to take that high line there is Larkamp, trying to stay as high as he can. Taylor drifts up the track just a touch, and away they go. We've seen how aggressive those drivers with the fresh tires wanted to be. They already picked up 2 spots, respectively, right before that corner.
Let's ride on board with the 00 of Mike Rigney and take a look from his vantage point. As the track is wide, but clearly not wide enough for that, as Larkamp will. Oh, Mike Rigney didn't really take his foot out of the throttle there, and I don't know how close he came to collecting some other cars, but stop the race, get things calmed down. Is it going to be 7 to go, or is it going to be 6 to go here at the line, Justin?
It's going to be around, I think, maybe 6, but there are a lot more people burning fuel this time. Let's just say that. You can hear the buzz of the fuel. Before it was maybe Tony Shalin. Now it's almost a quartet of singing towards the front of motors.
I will say one of the greatest things, one of my secret pastimes and enjoyments is going on YouTube and listening to, I think it's in particular Formula One engines playing various songs. You've got national anthems. You've got, I think I even watched a video of a Renault F1 engine playing Happy Birthday. I'm sure for one of the team members. You can have some songs, and maybe we need a Lionheart band, not of proper musicians, but just of drivers with the right pedal getting musical. Oh, this is going to be tense now, and I really think this benefits Rolf more than Harrington because the tires will be slightly less worn. Harrington's still in the driver's seat, but who knows? It could go either way, and at this point, it's a two-horse race. Unless these two make contact, Justin, it's Harrington or it's Rolf. There's no other way this goes.
With how things have played out, absolutely, because unless Ralph leaves the door open for blocker by accident, then it's indeed towards those two right now with the amount of laps. Now, though, it's again, how aggressively defensive does Harrington get? How aggressive does Ralph try and pounce towards turn 3 with the momentum coming off turn 2? How close do they get when it comes to wheel-to-wheel action? Because Barrett Ralph has been getting very close to that right rear tire on corner exit and down through the quad oval. You have to weigh all of that out. And how hungry are you for the victory as well? I think, obviously, Harrington, Ralph are very much hungry to win for various reasons. For Harrington, it's to try and win for his organization, to chip away at the gap of Adam Blocker. For Barrett Rolf, it's a chance to win in just one of his first starts in this series and make a statement for that 33.
We'll see if the lights come off on your iRacing pace truck. Benny, the pace car driver, I'm sure is thrilled at all the action he's getting here today. Watching closely, and of course, left-hand side, you can see those illuminated poles that the iRacing team have done a great job of replicating. Through the quad oval, across your start-finish line, lights are out. It will be 6 to go at the line. A 6-lap shootout to decide things. Justin, I'm getting tense. I don't know about you right now, but really, this could go any way, and I'm knocking on wood. I'm trying not to put, the RaceSpottv commentators curse down on these drivers. It very realistically is a race that could finish under caution. So all Rolf might have to do is be a nose in front when that caution flies.
That's a good point as well. And now I'm getting tense from that thought process. I think a couple of the drivers could be getting tense with that thought process too. But let me put it this way. We get towards 3 laps to go. You're at the point of no return. That's where the caution flag could end off things. So you have to be able to think about, okay, are we going to be able to get this done by 3 to go, by 2 to go, by the checkered flag? You have to be able to check all those boxes if you can win this race.
That's only 4.5 miles if the point of no return is 3 laps to go. We're only looking at can I do the math? Yes, I did the math correctly. Oh, that's a first here on RaceSpottv. 4.5 miles could decide this race. It will be 6 laps to go. Harrington searching for his 6th career victory in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, but he's being chased down by the ever-impressive Barrett Rolf. Green flag is back out. We are racing at the Great American Speedway, and it's a rocket of the start from the race leader, Connor Harrington.
Barrett Rolf had a really good start as well, nearly timed it up perfectly. It's going to take about a lap or 2 to build up that run. They're already trying to snake to break up this draft, coming to a high 5 from Barney the Flagman. 5 to go.
No chance that the cars on fresh tires make something happen here, but the likes of Jason Brophy just trying to get into the top 5 where he was before the penultimate caution that we had. Not close enough is Rolf this time around, but the gap comes down, now down to just under 0.2 of a second. Harrington defends the inside, but if the dummy comes, watch for Rolf to go aggressive. We've seen big moves here at Texas before.
And there is that aggressive right there, getting as close as he can to the right rear tire.
Matt Taylor is around. Does this bring out the caution? No, it does not. We stay green. We stay racing here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
And that could have been big. That could have been what Harrington was looking for. But now we're approaching that point of no return this time. Rolf needs to wind it back up to have a shot. The drivers of the fresh tires are already up to 6 as well.
A caution ends things now. It is 3 laps to go. Rolf gets in the grass, almost gets squirrely. He hangs on to that car. We stay going, and it's a bit too much momentum checked up from Barrett Rolf. Blocker almost hits the wall there. I don't know if anyone's going to challenge Harrington. It will be 2 laps to go at the line.
And Barrett is hungry. You can tell with how he's pushing. Another strong run off the corner again. Nearly made contact is already. This is getting tight amongst these cars. Rolf has to be careful here and not get too close.
Jason Brophy is up to a very impressive 4th position, charging through the field on fresh rubber. Oh, it's Dixon and Herder. Is there contact? Rolf checks up just in time. That was aggressive. It's white flag in the air.
That's exactly what I was expecting to potentially happen with how aggressive we've seen the defense in the back straight away. Barrett Rolf might not give as much leeway here for this final lap.
Reminds me of Alexander Rossi's one-handed save when they went racing just like that. Jason Brophy trying to steal a podium position away from Adam Blocker, but out front, drag race to the line. It's too little, it's too late. You'd have to think, how close will it be? The minus 273 Texas 200 presented by SimRace 247 comes to a close, and the second victory on the season goes to Connor Harrington as he looks to close that championship gap.
Wow, what a day for private label Team Hype. What a day for Connor Harrington. Able to defend very well. It got squirrely. Coming to one lap to go, in fact. Barrett Rolf definitely gave a little bit of slack with how defensive it got. All the way down to the apron it got. But what a charge by Brophy as well, Arjuna. You have to wonder if this didn't have that one caution, would he had enough time to be able to get to the front all the way to 3rd for the checkered?
No Joshua Chin, no problem. Connor Harrington, Jason Brophy, 2 private label Team Hype cars on the podium. And Justin, the 11th closest finish in Lionheart IndyCar Series history. Just 0.03 of a second between Harrington and Rolf.
And very well executed in turn by Harrington to be able to defend, to be able to hold on with a hard charge of Rolf. He very much was in control for much of this race after finding his way to that top position. He played this out very well for him and his team. Exactly what he needed for his championship.
What a race. And yes, there were cautions to break things up at the end, but it didn't matter. Connor Harrington held firm. He takes victory here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Let's go ahead and take a look at our unofficial race results presented by Carnox. Connor Harrington dominates the closing stages to take victory here today, but watch out for Barrett Rolf in his 2nd career IndyCar start in the Lionheart competition. He comes across the line in 2nd. Jason Brophy, one more lap, and you know what? He probably would have won it. He will settle for 3rd, proving us wrong that clearly fresh tires were a very good call. Adam Blocker, his streak of victories comes to an end, but what a day it was for him. 19 positions gained. He gets up into the top 4 after a very disappointing qualifying performance. That streak of top 5 finishes that dates all the way back to September of 2020 continues from Texas. Mike Razmas, another car on the fresh tires to make it up into the top 5, with Andrew Kinsella, Tony Schowen, Christopher, Joe Branch, and Ryan Otis the rest of the top 10. Tony Schowen and Jason Brophy, by the way, tied, 22 positions gained, your hard chargers on the day. It was a pole position for Robert Malechka, but an untimely caution for him dropped him down the pack. For factory backed, he recovered very strongly to finish in 11th. His teammate Alexis Newsom finishes in 12th, with the Canadian Brian Carey 13th, Luis Gonzalez Nunez in 14th, and on debut, AJ Musselman rounds out the top 15. Mike Rigney, Henry Bennett, Adam Frazier, Tyler Groff, and Brian Beard complete your top 20, with Matt Houston, Ricky Harding, Chris Fowler all on the leading lap. For Chris Fowler, I think we're going to place some of the blame on the series organizer George Anzaldo, not a racespottv commentary curse, instead the series admin commentary curse, as it were. Chris Lanini, the only car 1 lap down. Michael O'Brien started on the outside of row number 1, but he finishes in 25th position. Jay Brandt, Matt Taylor, Stefan Larkamp, 26th, 27th, and 28th, with 2 of the Sector 5 cars, Lionel Callisto and Scott Holmes, completing your top 30. One of the biggest fields we've had here at the Texas Motor Speedway. James Krahula, Dustin Wardlow, and Jason Galvin, Paul Jenkins all rounding out the field. What a day it was. And Justin, I'm a little bit out of breath at that finish. Yes, it was stop and start, but ultimately, my oh my, put all those concerns to the back of the mind. What a race we had here today.
It was a race with a lot of throwing moves, high-octane decision-making, and speeds around Texas Motor Speedway. It took a lot of perfection to be able to try and find your way in contention for the victory, and in turn, strategy was a big talking point. It definitely came into play with some of the drivers in their calls, with some of the pit stops, and in turn, it definitely helped those who were able to pick those right calls. That first caution with the drivers who stayed up towards the front, it paid off for them. It paid off for the drivers who were able to stretch it during the longest green flag run of the race. And now, they paid the dividends as a result.
Let's dive our way into the HyperX victory lane. But first, let's get into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. And waiting in HyperX victory lane, his second victory on the season, 6th in his Lionheart IndyCar Series career, Connor Harrington, you must be thrilled at holding off the charge in the closing stages from Barrett Rolfe.
Yeah, boy, you know, these Lionheart races are never easy to win, and Barrett certainly did not make it an easy one tonight. A great finish for us tonight. Our private label Team Hype machine was fantastic, and yeah, just really thrilled to finally to maybe have a break go our way, and we were able to take advantage of it, and that's kind of what we need for the rest of the season.
It's been an incredible run from Adam Blocker, 5 victories on the trot, but after a disappointing qualifying, he worked his way through the field. We know that Blocker's going to be missing a couple of the races in the back half of this season. What do you think you need to do to try and challenge him for the title? Because he's been so impressive, so impervious in some ways in the first half of the season. Maybe some bad luck, but I'm sure the continued work that you and the team will continue to do will bring you into that championship hunt. Yeah,
I mean, frankly, we're out of drops. So every race that we finish, we need to actually finish and bank good points. A little bit of a bummer not to score points at Indy and Milwaukee. So, we really need to just focus on getting these finishes in. And a lot of things can happen. Especially in the oval races. The oval races are crazy. One false move can take out 12 cars, and if we can miss those wrecks and put together more, top 5 finishes, who knows? It could be really interesting. It come down to the Triple Crown races at the end of the year.
We've got a really interesting schedule on in the next couple of months. 2 weeks from now, we'll go to Phillip Island. Then it's only a 1-week turnaround before I guess it's a week and a half before the second of the Triple Crowns from Michigan, Motegi, Iowa. Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. What's one that you're looking forward to as a driver? I know you both enjoy the road and the ovals, but there's a very wide range of tracks that we're going to visit here in the closing stages of the 2021 campaign.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, honestly, the road courses. I would say I would say I'm probably in the top 3 in terms of road pace in Lionheart. So those are good opportunities if we can qualify well and work the strategy. I think that we can hang with anybody. So I'm definitely not afraid to say that. And the ovals, we just gotta be smart and just finish the races and not put ourselves in sketchy situations. But the finishes have all been really close this year. I think of like all 6 victories if you exclude the ones where I went under caution. I think the total margin of victory is something like under a second still, even after tonight's race. So we like to make it interesting for the viewers at home. So thank you to everybody over at HyperX and everybody at Lionheart, and we'll see you guys at the next one.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for the Thunder Down Under. Congratulations on your second victory in 2021.
Yep, cheers guys.
So that was Connor Harrington. A very good day for the private label Team Hype, and, well, a very good day for a man making only his second Lionheart IndyCar Series start. Barrett Rolfe rocketed his way up through the field, 17 positions, just a little bit too little too late there, Barrett. Do you think there was anything you could have done to try and get that move done on Connor? You were a bit generous on him as he chopped your nose off in those closing laps.
Yeah, well, to be honest, and nothing against him, because I probably would have done the same thing. I figured it was better to back out than to throw it away that late, but I'm still super excited with the finish either way. I think I probably could have been a little bit closer. I tried a few different things and had to look up the inside a couple different times, and I gave it everything to try to get around him there at the end, and he just got the better of me at the line. So still super excited to pick up second place. I didn't expect to be this high up at all for this race, the way my practice went. So huge shout out to the guys at Ascari, Apex ATX, Apex Hunters United, Krishna Designs. Just super excited to be on the podium tonight.
And Justin had mentioned during this broadcast, Barrett, that you really didn't think you would be in this position, you know, fighting at the top level of Lionheart here in 2021, but you've been a standout performer, first in the Speedway Series, and I know Silverstone didn't necessarily go your way. This, though, I think just shows why you got the call-up midway through the year. What are you expecting from the second half of the campaign? We've got a very interesting schedule. You took your first Lionheart victory in the SimRacing Studio Indianapolis 500 in the Speedway Series. Surely you can get that victory here and really look to kick on then in 2022, potentially fighting for a championship.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, hopefully. As far as the rest of the season is concerned, I think we showed tonight we're really just looking for wins. Like I said, didn't expect to be here this early, so you know we're not in the fight for the championship this season. I'm not looking to ruin anybody else's chances either. But I think we've showed that we've got the speed to run here as well. So I'm really excited with how tonight went.
And I hope you don't mind me kind of ending this interview on a slightly more negative kind of a question, but I think both Justin and I were a bit surprised at your performance last time at Silverstone. Yes, we've only seen you on the ovals so far in the first half of the year, but you know, GT Academy success, GT Academy running at Silverstone in the real world as well. Where do you think you feel more comfortable, oval versus road? Because there's plenty of very interesting road courses we'll visit here in the back half of the season.
Yeah, I think for whatever reason, my style or the way I like to feel the car just doesn't translate to the qualifying speed. So I didn't get a chance to see how the road course race played out. I'm definitely comfortable on the road courses, but I think I've always kind of had a liking to ovals as well. So I'd like to think I'm pretty 50-50. I think I'm probably stronger on the ovals at this point, but we'll just have to see as more road course races come, and definitely going to be giving it my all there as well.
I can definitely attest to the difficulty of qualifying here in Lionheart, especially on the road courses where you basically run the race setup, and so you've got to somehow find a whole heap of speed with a full tank of fuel. Congratulations in your second here, Barrett. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time from Phillip Island.
Thank you very much.
So for Ascari Autosport, what a start to their IndyCar campaign. And for the private label Team Hype, we are now dialed in with Jason Brophy. Jason, if not for that last caution, I think you would have been the one in HyperX victory lane, but ultimately, pretty good day for private label Team Hype. Yes, there's no Joshua Chin, but 2 cars on the podium, extend your championship advantage in those team point standings. Must be pretty happy with how things went.
Yeah, I am. Obviously, I wish there wouldn't have been that last caution. I think the tires, we kind of split the strategy there. I made the call to pit, and I hadn't really run up front the whole race, so it was just, hey, let's take a shot at getting back to 5th and maybe winning. So,
and 22 positions gained. Sorry, Jason, I think you cut out just a little bit there. What was the secret to success? There was a lot of chat in the virtual paddock, as it were, about how difficult things were going to be with this setup. Late, minute changes from the iRacing team that then facilitated some late minute setup work. How did it go for you in terms of carving your way through the field? It wasn't strategy that necessarily got you to the front.
Yeah, I think the strategy got me a couple of spots there with the pitting, or not staying out when there was a caution on pit road. I think I gained like 3 or 4 spots there, but otherwise you just had to set up your passes. It was a lot of work, but you could build big runs running high in 1 and 2, or pulling slide jobs, like getting to the bottom and then being able to slide up in front of people and holding it through 3 and 4. so it was pretty easy to pass in that sense. But I completely murdered my right front tire through that second run, and like I was fading real hard back at the end of that. So the caution helped out there. I think I would have made it on fuel if it had gone green from there, so that would have been interesting. But all in all, real happy for the private label team hype.
So, next time we go to Phillip Island, what are you expecting from there? I mean, road course is definitely not where I think you feel most comfortable, but it's going to be a track where everyone's going to be feeling uncomfortable. So many different types of corners, elevation changes, off-camber, on-camber corners, high-speed corners, slow-speed corners. For private label team hype, it's going to be fun, I think, for your teammates, Connor Harrington and Joshua Chin. You, I think, will just be hoping to hang on and try and get back to the front of that rookie championship. You and Henry Bennett are really having some fun between the two of you.
Yeah, I think Ryan Otis is in the championship too, and he's right there. So it's a pretty good battle. I don't know how fun it'll be for Chin, because I'm pretty sure he has an EOL for there. So he'll have to pass me at about like lap 1. But I do think I'm pretty happy with. I like that track. I do like Phillip Island. I've run laps there for no good reason. I don't know how fast I'll be. I struggle with braking, and that downhill braking section right near the end, that's going to be rough for me. But with enough practice, I should be able to pick it up.
Looking forward to seeing you in action, and well, it's still going to be fun for Chin. He's going to have to work his way through the entire gaggle of cars. Congratulations for the private label team hype crew, and we'll see you for the Thunder Down Under.
Thank you very much, Arjun and Justin.
That was Jason Brophy, and Justin, what a way to kick off this back half of the season from the Great American Speedway, and what a run we've got coming up here. I mean, a road course next, then 3 consecutive speedways to really mix things up. Michigan, of course, a Triple Crown race, double points. Twin Ring Motegi, we've seen some interesting races there. I'm thinking, of course, of the Lionheart Retro Series race, which is not to be mentioned here on racespottv. Then short track racing at Iowa before we go north of the border to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
A whole range of racetracks when you think about it too, Arjuna, as a result here for these next few races, because you go from road course to big oval to middle of the road oval to short track to road course. It's going to test the abilities of the drivers in terms of being consistent on multiple different types of racetracks. The big question to me is, who's going to be able to shine out from the rest of the competitors, be able to become one of those rising stars the next few weeks? Because especially with the Triple Crown coming up, these next few races are going to be so pivotal, especially for those who are teetering on the edge with drops or those who are out of drops too.
It was interesting to hear Harrington say that he's already out of drops, and I think just gives you an insight into his championship mentality here. Of course, everyone's chasing Adam Blocker. They don't necessarily want to see him become a 4 consecutive time champion here, but it's looking very promising. He might be missing a couple of races, but ultimately he's been so consistent, Justin, that drops have not been something on the forefront of his mind. I'm sure he'll be pretty relaxed about the fact that he's going to be traveling with the NTT IndyCar Series and his role as a trackside engineer. He won't be too fussed about missing 1 or 2 races.
Yeah, right now he's in a very comfortable cushion, even in that case right now, where he's been consistent, he's been strong. We've talked about so much about his consistency for being inside the top 5. I don't think Blocker has too much to worry about. It's just a matter of making sure he doesn't make any mistakes down the stretch.
And I think mistakes are going to be something that everyone is trying to minimize here. Before we say goodbye, it is time to thank the partners that make all of this possible. So many different things have to go on behind the scenes. For example, late-minute setup work from the team when the iracing team decides to change things up. And buttkicker helps makes this all possible. For sim racers, the buttkicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off all orders.
The SimXperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimXperience ecosystem, visit www.simexperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel.
And it's not just these names, but so many more that help power the Lionheart IndyCar Series, powered by Buttkicker. To learn more about the names on your screen, or to learn more about the 3 different competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on, visit lionheartracingseries.com and stay in touch with the virtual paddock by joining the Lionheart Discord server. We will be back in 2 weeks' time as we go racing from the land down under. Phillip Island is such a fun racetrack, and even for those who don't necessarily enjoy the road courses, it is a challenge you must overcome. Remember, you can stay involved in social media to stay up to date with all your esports action. Lionheart has you covered on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram with all the latest comings and goings, including the HyperX Power Rankings. ESTV has you covered for all your esports needs. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, while racespottv has all your sim racing needs covered. Follow us across our social media or subscribe to us on YouTube by hitting that red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. Lionheart will be back in action next week as the Lionheart Retro Series goes short track racing once more from the cornfields of Iowa. Until then, for the entire team at RaceSpotTV, my name is Arjuna Kenkipati. I've been joined by Justin Prince with live timing and scoring and our 2021 graphics package powered by our partners at ATVO. Thank you to Kevin Niatola, Simon Grossman, and Nick Thisson for all their hard work getting things where we want them. We'll see you next week for Lionheart Retro Series action, but the next time the Lionheart IndyCar Series goes racing, it will be for the Thunder Down Under. Catch it all on RaceSpotTV and ESTV, but for now, so long and goodbye.